And welcome back, everyone. It is a birthday who would win today, so I didn't even bother doing two who would wins when I knew. Because, okay, Arceus from Pokemon versus Chronomon Holy Mode from Digimon. Was it Chimua? I believe that's how your name's kind of spelled. If that's not as pronounced, I'm sorry. Has been asking me to do this since April. um, and this is your birthday. So yeah, it's sorry to say it wasn't you were suggesting it multiple times. I wasn't going to make it come any faster. I'm sorry for that, but you did ask for your birthday. I try to be a man of my word, so here we are. All right. Uh, one is the creator deity of Pokemon, whereas one is we'll get to the other one. The other one, Chronomon's a bit more just a tad bit more complicated. But the origin of Arceus is it's a little it's a little hard to say exactly what the actual origin of Arceus is. All we know is it came from an egg that existed pretty much in the void before creation. It hatched, became Arceus. Its legend says that it shaped the Pokemon universe, not the world, but the universe with its 1,000 arms. It's been referred to as the original one in myths and legends and generally considered one of the strongest Pokemon to exist. It is thought to have created Sinnoh and the Raze region from Pokemon Conquest. I'm reading this verbatim, by the way. And it's possibly the entire universe along the Lake Guardians and the creation trio, or I should say the um, fundamental forces trio, the space, time, and gravity trio. Because he is thought to be the most long-lived Pokemon of all species. His home dimension he exists in his own home dimension. In lore, though, anytime we see Arceus, it's not fully him. It's just a piece of him. His real form is actually unknown and incomprehensible. It's the physical form he takes. It's the form we can kind of, process. Somewhat kind of like Pennywise, actually, which is weird to say that Arceus and Pennywise have anything in common. But that being said, he is capable. Arceus is portrayed of having basically powers of a god. He can bring back things that were once destroyed, making things vanish into thin air, halt time, overturn the very laws of nature, like gravity itself. He's capable of changing his type, at least in the anime, on a whim, using the plates, which can give him an immediate advantage over whoever he's fighting against. He's shown to destroy meteors. He's capable of firing off energy blasts. He also is capable of creating things like human items like the Arc Phone, who is Arceus. He does not take fools gladly, though, as he will go into violent rampages if betrayed or deceived. Beyond that, though, he is also capable of human speech, though it's usually through telekinesis or telepathy. He is the one who quells pretty much the Dimension Trio as well. So, yeah, he basically can bitch slap the Creation Trio. I keep saying it's a Creation Trio. It's not technically they're not technically creation, but they represent the fundamental forces of the universe. I think they're called the Creation Trio, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, Arceus is very powerful. In game, he's nowhere near as powerful as he is in the lore. For example, in lore, just like the anime and all that, he can change types on a fly. He still needs the plates to do it, but he can change types on a fly. In game, you can't rotate the plates. You need to always choose the type that Arceus is going to be. Also in the game, Arceus could be beat. Well, there's literally the memes can be beat like with a Magikarp with Focus Sash, and I think something else too. So, yeah, Arceus can technically be beaten by any Pokemon in the game as long as you strategize well enough. So, Chronomon is a weird, even by Digimon standards, is a very weird thing. Chronomon is what is known as an ultra-level Digimon, the final boss of Digimon World DS, as well as being available in Digimon World Dawn and Digimon World Dusk. Despite being one of the strongest Digimon in the series and being one of the very few ultra-level Digimon, very little is known on it. What we do know is it was actually created via an experiment using let's call it DNA. It's more the data of, and I always butcher the pronunciation, but it's Ymir, I believe it is. Basically, the supercomputer that actually controls and runs the digital world altogether. It ultimately was not defeated, but just kind of shelved. He was the byproduct, and ultimately through many Digivolutions, he became this. He does have a Destroyer mode as well, but the Holy mode is considered to be the strongest version. Now, for those of us in the Digimon know, you will probably already know this. However, for those of us that not, let's just break down Digimon powers, life cycles, and levels really quickly here. Digimon start as Digi-eggs. They grow from eggs, they come from eggs, wonderful. When they hatch, they are babies, or fresh Digimon. That's another level term I've heard before, is fresh. They are little babies. They have really no combat capabilities apart from frothing up foam. Then when they digivolve, they turn into in-training level. In-training levels are still very weak normally. There are exceptions to every rule. Like what was it? The Acadiamon in training level is still leagues beyond most other in trainings. But they're still young, still would be considered babies or kids at least. They're mostly still have the same types of attacks, usually like the not boom bubble, but bubble. It's like a bubble beam, like a pink frothy bubble. Then you go to Rookie, which is the Digimon, which it and Champion are probably the most common types you see throughout the Digimon series, oftentimes, because as you get stronger into the Ultimate Mega, and as we get to Ultra levels, there's less and less Digimon around. We're able to ultimately get to that level and stay at that level. It's harder to stay at that level of power. But Rookies are usually the most common. They can take many forms, Agumon to Vmon to Biomon to Renamon, so forth and so on. They all do. This is when the individuality of the Digimon really comes into play, as they all have their own individual personalities as well as techniques. Pepper Breath to a Blue Blaster. I'm just thinking about the original here. To Spiral Twister, so forth and so on. Then you go to Champion. Champion is more or less the standard adult form of a Digimon, where they usually grow much larger. Not always. Like Wizardmon's actually very human in size, but usually grow a lot larger. Now you're dealing with levels of power that can definitely topple, not landscapes usually, but they can topple buildings, can wreck cars. They would be at best like city block level the threats, usually at best. Then you go to Ultimate. Now this, up until we found out about Megas, was thought to be the pinnacle. There are a lot of Ultimate Digimon around, still compared to the other two, but there's still less of them than there are Champion and Rookies by a large margin. These are Digimon that can actually screw up, are like at least town to city to possibly even continental at the high end of their powers. Some of them are even world breakers or world enders, but those are like really rare in terms of power for ultimate level. But for example, Metal Greymon is stated to have the power of a nuclear warhead. So you're talking about a guy who can literally level a city if he wants to. And that he's not even anywhere near close to the strongest ultimate there is. Then you have Mega. Now, Megas can vary in many different ways of power, but generally speaking, Megas, even the weakest of Megas, are country-level threats. The strongest Megas are planetary-level threats. And even beyond that, some Megas are we're talking about solar system-level threats. You're talking about your War Greymons, your Piedmons, almost all of your Royal Knights. But beyond that, there is one other. Actually, technically, there's two others. Technically, there's a Super Ultra, but we're just dealing with the Ultra right now because that's what he's labeled as. Ultra is actually a level that is beyond Mega, and the amount of Digimon that are Ultra level, I don't know if I could say I could count them on my hands, but it wouldn't go very much past 10. The amount of Ultras that exist out there are so far and few between compared to the rest of the Digimon series out there. And these are the Digimon that could literally wreck the entire digital universe. This all is to lead up into based on the little bit of information we have on Chronomon Holy Mode, he falls into the spectrum of Digimon that could wreck shop on the entire Digi universe. Because if we even just go into game real quick, you need to fight him with multiple Digimon at a time. Technically speaking, especially in some of the games, you could literally raise your in training or rookie Digimon to like mega level status if you just do it back and forth do enough training back and forth, but that takes forever. But you need like mega level Digimon or other ultra level Digimon to even combat this SOB. he was strong enough to wipe out 7 insanely powerful Demon Lord Digimon, the 7 great Demon Lords, and erase one from Beyond Death, in which a Digimon's death means nothingness. Where he has literally plays that can wipe out your existence, more or less. And yeah, he wiped one out beyond reincarnation. Digimon, basically, when they die, they don't actually, they die, but their essence goes back into a Digi-Egg. Basically, Digimon are kind of like Doctor Who. They just keep coming back after death. They regenerate, they reincarnate. However, we've seen that this instance, for example, this thing erases you beyond death. But we've also seen that if the data of a Digimon is absorbed, like in Tamers, that's it too. They can't reincarnate. Depending on whether or not they're evil or not. If evil, the one who is erased will be erased beyond nothingness. So yeah. Beyond that, though, in the games at least, when he is an actual enemy, mind you, he is capable. He was going to, as it's described, he was going to destroy everything in the digital world except itself. This implied that the entire network, in which it's an infinitely expanding realm with infinite servers, in which infinite universes, casually one-shots both Digital World DS Alphamon and Clavis Angemon, and superior to the 4 holy beasts such as Bahumon. This thing was basically going to wipe out not just an entire universe, but an entire digital multiverse. Now, how that relates to the real world is a little dubious, but there does seem to be a good analog to the real world compared to the Digi world, as again, where Greymon is described to have the abilities of a nuclear warhead. So it's not insane to think that this logic applies to any other universe he could theoretically be in, provided it's not a larger universe beyond the digital world. Infinitely expanding does not mean that it's infinite. It just means it's constantly expanding infinitely, which means there is a set limitation to said universe. It just keeps growing bigger. That's all that means. In terms of abilities and attacks, his most notable abilities and attacks allow him to essentially degrade and destroy data in the digital world. Again, if the individual was evil, they can just erase their existence into nothing. He can literally destroy all matter but time, space, minds, and souls. So the only thing that will survive is time, space, minds, and souls, but he can destroy all matter beyond that. The attack technique can be called Chrono DSR, or Chrono Destruction, can be used to return one to a previous state shown as inverted all Digimon in city into Digi-Eggs. That I remember from Digimon World Dawn, which, if you're not a fan of dungeon crawlers, I can understand if you weren't a fan of that. I know some people are mixed. I'm someone who can wind and grind all day in those games, man. I have my copy over there. My sister currently has my 3DS, because she lost hers, but I currently have mine over there, my copy over there. I love playing those games. I'll go back to playing them every once in a while. I love them to death. But that being said, in Holy Mode, when his signature attack is basically something called Starlight Explosion, which he attacks with flames which are emitted from the mouth by the power of its wings, and they have the ability to pretty much wipe out evil, as well as Holy Flare, God Cross, Final Heal. The issue for this Digimon, in any fight you throw him, is the fact we barely have any information on him lore-wise. We have just barely enough of his origin. And in terms of power, he's just has not been... You want to know how many games this guy's actually been in? Hold on. I think it's like 3. But hold on, I'm gonna actually get his actual game history here real quick. Let's see here. All right. So he was in Digimon World DS, Digimon World Dawn and Dusk, Digimon Lost Evolution, Digimon Story Super Chronos Wars Red and Blue. Been in 5 games. I've been in, what did I say, 5? 4. Been in 4 games. 4 games. Now that might sound like, hey, he's been in 4 games, that's a lot. Do you have any idea how many Digimon games actually exist? That's the thing. Do you have any idea how many actually exist? And the fact that he's never been brought into the main anime at all, any of the main animes, means that this is all we have. This is all we have on him. So, let's do this in two ways. Game, and then game versus lore. Because technically the game, he's still, the lore of the Digiworld games are still the Digiworld lore. If we're talking about the game version of Arceus versus the game version of this character, of Chronomon Holy Mode, well, Arceus is going to get his teeth kicked in completely. The lore technically applies a certain degree, but it does not apply all the way because obviously the anime treats Arceus much differently than it does in the game. The game is limited to one type at a time while holding a plate. Arceus can be beaten in single combat. Chronomon pretty much cannot be. I will say this. I don't know where Chronomon stands in terms of like Victory Greymon and Victory Garurumon, who are basically specially designed mega level Digimon. And they are only mega levels as far as I know. But they're like beyond powerful. They might as well be ultra level Digimon. That's how powerful they are. They're specifically designed to protect the digital world, particularly the main Chimera, Yggdrasil. They're specifically designed to protect that thing. So I don't know where they would stack compared to him. They are probably weaker individually, but when they come together, they might be stronger. Point being, game to game, because of the multiversal feats and stuff like that, or multiversal level feats in the game, because that's what he was going to do, wipe out an entire universe. The game Arceus can't compete with Chronomon. If we go with anime lore and everything you have added on there, including manipulating the laws of physics, pretty much, or the laws of nature, gravity manipulation, space of the time manipulation, all that good stuff. The fact that we're not seeing the real Arceus, the fact that he can change his type on a draw. Well, okay, now we have an Arceus who is arguably a universal level being, if not maybe even stronger. We don't know if he's shaped solely the single Pokemon universe, or the other universes, like where the Ultra Beasts come from, the other dimensions they come from. We don't know if he shaped both of those things. We know that there is a Pokemon that's a different dimension, different reality. So is there a different Arceus for that reality, or did he shape those realities? My gut impression would be no, he did not. That there is probably another Arceus for that, or whatever creator Pokemon deity there is for that universe. Because different dimensions, different realities do not qualify usually as under a single universal banner. Usually, once you're going into different realities, that's multiverse right there. And Arceus, as far as we know, doesn't have multiversal feats. He's got universal feats. If he did in fact create the entire Pokemon universe, he certainly has universal feats. And he's arguably a universal creator. The question right at the gate would be, is he a universal destroyer? And unfortunately, there's not, even in the lore, there's not a lot to say that he would theoretically destroy a universe, or could even destroy a universe. As powerful as he is, the ability to create something and the ability to destroy something, while related, are not inherently the same. It is, in fact, easier to destroy something than it is to create something. Now, that might be me hyping up Arceus' abilities, and to a degree, it is. But that being said, it's also about having the ability, period, to destroy something. And unless in lore, his judgment attack, which I believe it's called, what is it called again? Yeah, just judgment. Unless that can reach a universal level of power, which I would have to assume it theoretically could, but whether or not he would want to destroy all of the universe is up for debate. Unless it could, which possible, Arceus himself is not a universal destroyer threat. He's a universal being. Similar, what's the best way to put it? I would say similar to kind of, I'm trying to think of an individual who is a here's a good example of this. Zeno. Zeno is a multiversal level being, and definitely a multiversal level destroyer, if not even beyond multiversally, because he exists outside the multiverse. He might be like Omni or something like that, or Outer. Regardless, he is a multiversal destroyer. But he still has bodyguards. This implies that his durability, the amount of force he can take, is not multiversal in nature. He survived a universe being destroyed around him, sure, but basically his durability does not equate to his power output. Similarly, Arceus' ability to create does not also relate to his ability to destroy necessarily. That being said, he could probably destroy the Pokemon Earth if he really wanted to. He created it. In theory, he could destroy it. But he tries to hope for the best. Everything I'm trying to get at here in this video is, even if I were to highball him, Arceus, to a universal level destroyer, let's just say for argument's sake that he can't argue. I'm doing everything I can here. And his type changing ability would give him some defensive capabilities, sure. On raw power alone, Chronomon would destroy the Pokemon universe in a blink. First off, we don't know how big the Pokemon universe is. We can only assume it's probably the same size as ours, roughly. And that means we know that the Digimon universe is probably larger than ours because it is technically a multiverse. It's multiple universes, multiple servers, so forth and so on. And he was going to wipe that entire thing out. We don't know how much effort it would have taken in to do that, but he was going to wipe it out. Even if I were to highball Arceus to a solid universal, high universal, it still would not be able to compete with the level of raw power we're dealing with. Add on to the fact that his attacks, Chronomon's attacks, seem to be like Holy Fire based. There isn't really a type. Let's just assume that Holy and Fire play out to Fairy and Fire, respectively. There's no type combination that would be resistant to both of those. There's no single type, there's no single type that'd be resistant to those. He could turn into ground, but because it's holy, and again, I'm just trying to equate Digimon to Pokemon here, the fairy would just be like, okay, fine, I've also got fairy ability here, and it's still overly powerful. There's no immunity to either of those types, is what I'm trying to get at. If this were something like a ground type, well, he could turn into flying type and not be affected by it. If it were something like a psychic type, he could turn into a dark type. If it were fighting, you could turn into a ghost type, normal ghost type, ghost normal type. If it could translate into a type that has a type that's immune to it, then you would probably be able to have Arceus actually contend a bit more. But the problem is, he really doesn't have a defensive stance against Chronomon. He can manipulate the fundamental forces of nature just like Arceus can, and probably to a higher degree. And what's the best way to put it? His overall raw power, even if he did have resistances, I think just supersedes Arceus. So in this fight, Arceus, I think, and again, in the games, you can beat Arceus one-on-one. You can't beat Chronomon to Holy Mode one-on-one. No matter, maybe you can, but the amount of grinding you would have to get to do that is so obscene as to be ridiculous. You usually have like a team of 3, and you need that team of 3. So, yeah, in terms of raw power, and that's more or less what's really coming down to. Raw power having very similar abilities in terms of the overall abilities. And not having as solid defense, I'm going with Chronomon Holy Mode for this fight. Excuse me. So, that's my thought. Chronomon Holy Mode wins this fight. Let me know in the comments below what you think. But until then, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, and subscribe. And wait a minute, and then I disappear. And I'll see you for the next one. Later.